welcome back to the Daft on Draft podcast. We are back after the weekend, and we are back with a Daft or Draft today. We're going to do a quarterback theme, we're going to do a running back theme, and we're going to do a defensive line theme because something that was brought up today or yesterday, if you are listening to this, on the Twitter sphere was that from John Ledyard, this class might not be great, but edge and defensive tackle, they got some dudes.
Yep.
There is a lot of depth, and there is a lot of different kinds of depth at each position. And so I think that this is something that we're going to see guys ranked every which way in this class. And it's really, truly going to end up coming down to what your team needs, what your team wants in the type of player. And so just big boards, they're always important. Consensus big board is always a really cool thing. But at the end of the day, these teams are going to take the archetype players that they want. Anyways, I cannot do this episode alone. I have my podcast co-host, Cory Kinnan, here with me. He just slammed down some protein after a workout. We're going to get talking about it, and we're going to start off with an absolute doozy because it's one that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, man. And it's one that I just had to write an article on because I got a lot of insight on it. And so let's just dive right in.
Yeah, let's
just dive right in because it's the talk of the town after the Senior Bowl, which is honestly shocking.
Weird.
Because I've realized, here's what I've realized about All-Star events. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If you go in thinking that this guy's really good and he has an average week, you're going to say he had a really good week. If you go in thinking this guy is really overhyped or this guy's bad and he has an average week, then you're going to think he had so it's just like beauty's kind of in the eye of the beholder. But after the Senior Bowl, the Jaxson Dart hype is off the rails a little bit here, including a Dan Orlovsky tweet that said Jaxson Dart is going to go round 1. So, our first draft, after draft, Ole Miss quarterback Jaxson Dart will be a first round pick.
I want you to go first here because I have to get a quote that I want to get word for word correct. So I need to look it up real quick.
Okay, I am drafting this, and I wrote an article on it. I've talked to scouts in 4 different buildings. Not a single one has told me they have a day 2 grade on the guy. A day 2 grade on the guy. They have all said that because he plays quarterback and because there's a lot of quarterback needy teams, they anticipate that he probably gets bumped up into the day 2 range. But nobody has a day 2 grade on the guy. I've talked to a prominent media member in the NFL draft analysis, one of the bigger names that I've networked with over the years. And he said, yeah, I probably think he goes around 3, but anything in the top 64 seems pretty insane. There's one scout who gave a not safe for word response of just, he effing sucks. So for me, it's hard to see where the hype is coming from other than media. Because, I watched the same tape that everybody else did at the Senior Bowl. And I saw a quarterback who clearly didn't operate NFL concepts at the college level. I don't know. I don't know where all of this Dart stuff is coming from. So I'm drafting it very hardly. Very, very hard.
All right. From the great movie From the great movie Office Space. No, man. Shit, no, man. I believe you get your ass kicked saying something like that, man. No, absolutely not. It reminds me so much. We just went through this a couple of years ago with a guy who I think it wasn't as quick of an arm, but it had more juice. He was as good, if not a better athlete, coming from the same exact offense. And we tried to talk ourselves into Matt Corral, too. And he's not even in the freaking league anymore. Not even in the league anymore. He
You
was
can
a
say that for a
third-round
bunch of
pick.
those 2022 quarterbacks too.
Yeah. We tried to talk ourselves into all of those guys, just like we're trying to talk ourselves into all of these guys now.
And like to me, it's the Desmond Ritter thing, because in 2022, I'm not comparing those guys as players, but in 2022,
Ritter was a better prospect.
I agreed there as well, and also on a practice squad. Well, I guess he was on the Raiders' active roster by the end of the year and starting the game. But to me, it's the same Ritter stuff where it's like people that I really respect pounded the table for Desmond Ritter, man. And I stayed pretty firm. Like, I don't really see it. And then he went third round and he played out.
It's amazing to me that there are guys, because Dan Orlovsky knows more about running an NFL offense and playing the position of quarterback at the NFL level, way more than I will ever know. First of all, he is an intelligent human being.
He is.
The character on ESPN is the character on ESPN. That's kind of what you got to do because ratings are important. When he was doing his breakdown stuff before he got the big gig, he was one of the dudes to tune into. And so I know he knows what he's talking about. And I don't want to just completely ignore what he's saying. But I don't understand what you look at with Jaxson Dart and say, that's a first-round guy. There was somebody on Twitter the other day that said you could sit him behind somebody for a year or two.
And he'd be the next
Josh Allen. What? I understand. We all have different eyes. We all see these guys very differently. But there's a level of competency that just doesn't seem to be there when it comes to specific players. And it's every year there's a couple of guys that it's like this with, where it's you fall in love with this guy. And a lot of us are like, what are you looking at? That doesn't make any sense to us whatsoever. And he's that guy this year. Because, first of all, he's nowhere close to the athlete, the size, the arm of Josh Allen. And Josh Allen his issue wasn't being late on everything in college. It was that he was horrifically inaccurate. And played a bit of hero ball. That's not Jaxson Dart. Jaxson Dart just doesn't run an NFL offense or an offense that even mimics NFL concepts. And he's late. And this is what I've talked about with Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker, these guys that come from these Mickey Mouse freaking offenses. The most that I can ask of you is to run that Mickey Mouse bullshit offense at a high level. And Hendon Hooker ran that Tennessee offense at a high level. And that's why, despite physical limitations compared to Joe Milton, he was the starter and he was the guy who produced at an incredibly high level while Joe Milton did not in that same offense.
And Hooker had some injuries, obviously. Had the ACL tear his last year, but he only went third round still. Hooker's got a better arm and he's a better athlete than Jaxson Dart. Like, I don't know if you saw this play. He's running boot, dude, at the Senior Bowl. Boot in the red zone. And has both the back in the flat and the receiver on the corner open. Hesitates. Doesn't anticipate it. Hesitates. And then runs out of bounds for a loss.
Was it starting the game?
No, it was a practice. It was in day 3 of practice.
I'm sure I saw it, but I didn't take notice to it.
Yeah, it was RJ Harvey. RJ Harvey was a little covered, but if you throw that on time, a little covered from a running back in the red zone, he's still hitting the pylon. And then that corner was wide open, and he didn't throw it and ran out of bounds.
Yeah,
on boot, which is the most basic of NFL concepts. At best, he's a multi-year projection to learn a playbook that is a book and not a Denny's menu, it is at Ole Miss.
That's it. I don't think we need to.
I think we beat that horse. That horse is dead. All right, Dafter draft number 2. Another Senior Bowl player here. Toledo's Darius Alexander will go in the first half of day 2. Dafter draft.
I'm gonna daft this one.
Really?
I'm gonna daft it. Listen, for me, on my board, he is number. Let me get to it here. He is number 30. Oh, all my numbers are screwed up. Hold on. He is number 36 on my board.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing, though. Mason Graham, Tyleek Williams, Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant, Deion Walker.
What we've heard the league thinks of Walter Nolan,
Jordan Phillips, Shamar Turner, maybe, Alfred Collins, TJ Sanders. Like, these are all guys, big schools, who are probably better athletes, and they're all younger than Alexander, who is a sixth-year senior. He's not. My thing with him is he's outrageous. Like, this dude is a phenomenal football player. But I think the NFL will look at everyone else's athleticism, even on tape, and say, we can teach these guys to be outrageous with their hands. Like, we can teach these guys to be at his level with technique and the ability to read, run pass, and the ability to physically dominate guys, because he's a sixth-year guy. He is more physically developed. And I think that's what teams are going to do. He's going to end up going probably late day 2 or on day 3, and could be one of the top 3 best defensive linemen from this class. Defensive tackles, interior guys. Because his tape is hilariously good. Hilariously good. But at the end of the day, I think he's going to run like a 5'1". He's just a little over 300 pounds. He's a 6-year guy from Toledo. And you have all these other dudes lining up from big schools who are 4- and 5-star recruits who are going to test better. And that's kind of what I think it comes down to.
Yeah. So you think he's a pretty average athlete then?
Explosiveness wise, I think he's incredibly fluid, but I don't think he's super explosive.
I mean, we've seen 26, 27, 28-year-olds get drafted in the first round before, but they're all coming from productive years at Power 5 schools. Like, I think Hayden Hurst is the one that I think of most, and he came from South Carolina after playing baseball, right?
Yes. Yeah, and he was 25.
He's going to be 25 as well. Darius Alexander is.
Yeah.
If he goes out and he tests nutty, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that, like, Darius Alexander is the type of player that the Senior Bowl is designed for. This is tough, dude.
My thing with him, when it comes down to it, is they're going to think I have these other guys for 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And I might not get a second contract out of him. Or he might be like, I might get a year or 2 after that first contract. I don't know how often NFL teams look at that specifically. Like, for me, how many of these guys end up getting second contracts? Maybe half. Like, that's, at the end of the day, I would want to take the football player that I feel most confident is going to give me quality reps from the jump. And I think that out of anybody except for Mason Graham and Tyleek Williams, I think Darius Alexander is the next guy on the list that I'm like, yes, absolutely. Out of the gates, he's going to be a stud.
Yeah.
And
I think
Alfred Collins defending the run, but
yeah, I think I'm going to daft it too, just because I've seen some really explosive defensive tackles not get drafted until the 3rd round. Like, and even kind of older prospects who dominated the Senior Bowl, like even last year, 2 years ago too, we could talk about Bernard Ryman. older offensive tackle, didn't get drafted to the third round, and he's a top tier
That's
athlete.
good. Yeah.
Christian Haynes last year, 25-year-old out of UConn, 25-year-old out of UConn went in round 3. And I'm even thinking, who's the other UConn defensive tackle? Travis Jones. I had Travis Jones as defensive tackle 2 that class.
He was awesome.
His hands are awesome, and he's explosive as heck. And I'm glad he's kind of putting on with Baltimore right now. Nnamdi Madubuike, I had him as a high second-round grade, and he went third round to the Ravens as well. And so I think people look at different things with defensive tackles, and I do think, maybe you're right. These older, smaller school guys, even if their tape is really, like Christian Haynes' tape was really good at UConn, but he was 24, 25, and Bernard Ryman at Central Michigan kind of the same way. So I think I'm going to adapt it too, as much as I want to draft it. He's 25. He's going to be 25 before he takes a snap in the NFL. That's tough.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I'm going to draft it. All right. Last daft or draft here. Let's talk a little running back action. It's been a while since we talked about running back, but we're going to talk about some more running backs later in the week. So,
yeah, I'm excited, dude. I've been diving into even more guys, and my gosh, it is.
There's some fun ones, man.
This class is awesome.
Yeah. So, daft or draft here. The Raiders should draft Ashton Jeanty if they can't find a trade down partner at 6th overall. Can I go first on this one?
Yeah.
I'm going to draft it. They clearly need a quarterback. I think they might be one of the more aggressors for Shedeur Sanders. If they don't come up, I think they'll be one of the more aggressors for Sam Darnold. If they can't land a quarterback and they have to run it back, your running backs are Zamir White and Sincere McCormick and Amir Abdullah. At the end of the day, if you don't have a quarterback, get somebody who's the easiest player to put the ball in their hands, and that's a running back. You turn around and you hand them the ball. Sometimes it's as easy as that. Like, their wide receiver court is bad. Their quarterback play is bad. I mean, their offensive line is not top tier, but it's not terrible. I think Colton Miller fell back a little bit this year, but they have some pieces to work with. I like Dylan Parham quite a bit, and I think they've got some players there. And again, this isn't an offensive line class. You take an offensive lineman in the top 10. If your team is that starved for talent and you can't solve any of your problems in free agency or you can't come up for a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward, then take a guy that you can give 200 touches to as a rookie. That's what it comes down to. Build the plane out of Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, their offensive line is not very bad. It's not very bad. Colton Miller.
Jackson Powers Johnson. They just drafted
Jackson Powers Johnson. I've always been a huge Thayer Munford fan, so I'm just very happy that he's sticking around in the league. But build the whole thing out of Brock Bowers and Ashton Jeanty. Just the whole thing.
We had this conversation last year. The Raiders need to have did the Raiders deserve to take a luxury pick? Do they have the talents to take a luxury pick?
Yeah.
Tight end. They took the best player on the board, and he broke records.
Yeah. And if
he might be the best tight end in the NFL.
Yeah, and if you're going to have bad quarterback play, what better way, or average, backup level quarterback play, why not give a guy a free target in a guy who can run option routes at tight end and consistently get open? And you can even hand him the ball off a little bit. Yeah. And then a guy out of the backfield who led college football in running back receiving yards in 2023. And then in 2024 was a Heisman Trophy candidate and almost broke the single season record for rushing. That dude. And I think I saw JP Acosta tweeting or on the Blue Sky about it. You can watch Ashton Jeanty, and if you don't come away in awe, I'm not sure you're watching him, because no, he's not quite the Saquon level athlete. He's not quite Bijan. But I think coming out of Boise, he is the most complete back that I've seen. From the ability to catch football out of the backfield to the ability to pass protect to finding and always being in the correct lane to the contact balance, the ability to churn. Like, he has everything that you look for in a back, plus the ability to create explosive plays consistently. And that is something that the Raiders' run game, because their offensive line was pretty good. They had good, if you want to look at the analytics, good average rushing before contact. Second level, third level make you miss was not there because they were trotting out Amir Abdullah and Alexander Madison.
McCormick was producing a little bit at the end of the year.
Yes. Not great, not talented players. And do running backs matter? I think we're starting to see that they might, especially now that the NFL continues to get smaller and smaller and smaller and faster to defend the pass. The run game is coming back. The power run game is coming back. You're starting to see offensive lines being able to bully defensive lines a lot more and front sevens. And if you can get guys in 1v1 situations that can make a miss, you see what Saquon Barkley was able to do this year. You saw what Derrick Henry was able to do with Lamar Jackson in the same backfield. You're able to see what James and I think the funniest thing about the whole MVP conversation was talking about Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and how much Derrick Henry does for Lamar Jackson, while just absolutely ignoring that James Cook is one of the best running backs in the NFL, especially as a pass catcher out of the backfield for that Buffalo offense. So if you have a dude that can do it, do it. And if you don't have a quarterback, like you said, turn around and give him the ball 250 times. You're not going to be good. Run out that clock, get the game over with, go 4-12, find your quarterback, or 4-13, find your quarterback next year.
There's a lot of teams that are going to be in that boat. There's a lot of teams this year. Going to be a lot of teams next year.
Yep.
Yeah, I completely agree. I get the conversation for what's the value difference between Ashton Jeanty 6th overall versus Omarion Hampton 40th overall? But I still think it's a pretty big difference.
Well, and that's part of it. If you want to talk about, for me, when it comes down to running backs, the value for me isn't as much in what they're able to bring physically, but that if you draft a running back in the top 10, you are already paying that running back top of the position money, where if you get and you hit on a corner, on a wide receiver, on an offensive tackle, you are paying relative pennies for that outstanding production compared to the top of that pay range at that position. Whereas with running back, you are already paying at the top range. And that's why that's what the conversation really is when it comes to value.
Yeah, and that was the conversation about Bowers and the tight end as well. He's a top 4 paid tight end, but guess what? He might be a top 2 tight end. He might be a top 1 tight end. So you hit. Yeah. Who cares?
But that's the thing. If you miss, it's an expensive miss for that position.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. All right. That's all the Daft drafts we got for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything else you want to add to the people?
I don't.
I think we'll probably hit up lift heavy
pet dogs.
Yeah.
That's it.
There we go. I think we'll probably do another mailbag this week as well. Probably fit one of those in. And again, we are getting into positional rankings. So we're starting out with running backs this week, and there are a lot of good ones to talk about. So hang with us. We're getting into the meat of it. We're through the All-Star circuit. The Combine is a month away, which feels crazy. Less than a month away, 3 weeks away, which is crazy. So hang tight. Hang with us. This has been another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast. I'm Cory. That is Dalton. Goodbye.